हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाया सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देवा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। Shri Guru Namaha. Namaste friends. Welcome to session 140 of Bhagavad Gita verse by verse. Our study of chapter 18 known as Moksha Sannyasa Yoga will continue with the verses 45 to 50 of this chapter. These verses will be chanted later at the end of the class by Srimati Nilima. Now, before Dr. Hegde sir gives introduction of today's class, Sri Vinayakan will give a brief recap of the verses we studied in our last episode. Over to you, Vinayakan.
Hari Om, Shri Guru Bhyo Namah. Through the coming verses, Lord Krishna wants to summarize the two central themes of Bhagavad Gita once again in the light of our own guna. Karma Yoga is being summarized in verse number 41 to 49. Lord is emphasizing Swadharma, Karma Yoga in the form of offering one's own profession or occupation as a worship to the Lord. Karma Yoga is that lifestyle in which one dedicates his life to various contributory activities to purify the mind. In simple terms, a religious lifestyle to purify the mind for Jnana Yogyata Prapti. It is an extrovert life, active life, otherwise called pravritti. Everybody has to go through this, contribute to the creation. We live, we are taking from the creation, breathing, drinking, eating, etc. So we are indebted to the creation for every moment of our living. Lord Krishna says, we all have to contribute something to creation. Now, which field we will contribute? Krishna says, choose one field and contribute according to your capacity, and let the field be chosen by your inclination and aptitude, based on guna, whether sattva, raja or tamo dominant. Choose any field of work and do something. In 4th chapter, Lord says, Chadurvarnyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram apimam vidya kartaram avyam. The fourfold division of society has been created by me based upon guna and karma. Know me, be its author. Also know me to be a non-doer. So here in this 41st verse, Sloka says, Brahmana kshatriya visham shudranam cha parandapa karmani pravibhaktani swabhava prabhavayar gunai. Brahmana kshatriya visham shudranam cha. There are 4 categories of people, not based on birth, but based on guna. And for these 4 groups of people, karmani pravibhaktani, 4 types of profession are allotted by Vedas themselves, 4 types of field of activity or service. So through that profession, we can contribute to the society. Krishna says karma means profession, pravibhaktani, we have been allotted by Vedas, or since the Vedas are given by the Lord himself, this has been done by Lord himself. There are 3 possibilities or norms in choosing the profession. One norm can be the profession that you love, that in which we have got an inclination and aptitude. This is called guna-based choice of karma or profession. Second norm is what? Birth-based choice of profession, hereditary profession. Third option is go by money, which profession pay well. Like that, when one can earn more. According to our tradition, they say the best norm is guna norm. Going by swabhava is best. Therefore, Krishna says, swabhava prabhavayar gunai. Based on guna, based on prakriti, karmani pravibhaktani, professions are categorized. And all these professions are broadly classified into 4 categories: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra karma. What are those professions? Through the next verses. Next verse. Shamo damastapa shaujam shandirarjama vevacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma swabhavacha. Mind control, sense control, austerity, purity, patience, straightforwardness, jnanam, vijnanam, and faith are the duties of the Brahmanas born out of their nature. Brahmana profession means simple life, study of scriptures, following what is said in the scriptures, and teaching the other people the essence of scriptures and serving as a model. Dharma can give happiness even without luxury. A Brahmana has to be a model to the society to teach and propagate the scriptures. That dharma itself will give happiness. Dharma itself will give peace and security. Even though luxuries are not required, luxury is not a necessity for the happy life. This is a great teaching of Veda. Luxury is not required for a happy life. Happiness is an inner state. This has to be taught to the society. Brahmana's profession first requires shama, calmness of the mind. Shanda, a person who takes to Brahmana's profession must practice shanti, quietude. Dhamma, sense control. Tapa, an austere life in which possessions and comfort are kept minimum. Shaucham, purity. More than external purity, inner purity is important. Shanti, physical and mental preparedness to withstand external discomfort. Arjavam, a Brahmana has to follow a life of integrity. He should avoid hidden motive. Vak, Kaya, Manas should be in straight line. Jnanam is important. A Brahmana has to dedicate his entire life to learn lifelong and teach the society. And next one is Astikyam, means the faith in the Vedas, a means of knowing the scriptural world. The one who uses the sixth sense, that is Vedas, is called an Astika. Next verse. Shauryam tejo dhritir dakshyam yuddhe chapya palayanam danam ishvara bhavascha kshatram karma swabhavajam. Heroism, power, will, resourcefulness, not running away in the battle, generosity, and overlordship are the duties of Kshatriyas born out of their nature. Now, Krishna comes to Kshatriya karma. Everybody cannot take Brahmana karma. Loka is having different kind of interests. Shauryam tejo dhritir dakshyam. Kshatriya means a ruler, king or a soldier who has to maintain the law and order of the society, and he has to protect dharma, and he has to punish the adharmic people, and if required, he should be ready to enter in the battlefield also. Shaurya means courage, teja power, dhriti perseverance, dakshyam resourcefulness, capacity to take quick decisions. Yuddhe chapya palayanam, not running away from the battlefield. Danam, a ruler has to give grant to all the people. A good ruler should promote all science, art, culture, everything. And Ishvara Bhavaja, leadership to be in the front. This is Kshatriya Karma. And next slide, sir. Next is Krishi Goraksha Vanijyam, Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam, Paricharyatmaka Karma, Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam. What are the next two set of people? Vaishya profession is commerce or business. So distribution of material. Krishi, agriculture and industry. Goraksha means cattle rearing. Vanijyam, commerce or business. All these are Vaishya Karma, taking care of economic well-being. Then there are people who do not have leadership qualities. They can only follow somebody. They will do what they are told. They are unskilled people and they call Shudra by character. This is not by birth, by character. These people are able to help the other three sections of the society, will be good workers also. Lord Krishna continues, Swe Swe Karmanya Abhiradaha Samsiddhim Labade Naraha Sokarma Nidata Siddhim Yadha Vindanti Tatsunu. By fulfilling their duties born out of their innate qualities, human beings can attain perfection. Now, hear from me how one can become perfect by discharging one's prescribed duties. Lord Krishna says, to convert karma into karma yoga, no need to change the profession. Lord says, whatever the profession in which we are, no need to change it all. Only have to change the attitude with which undertake those activities, and therefore, first Krishna emphasized to continue the profession where we are. Swe Swe Karmanya Abhiradaha. Remain in your profession. Swe Swe Karmani. In one's own chosen profession. Abhiradaha. One should learn to be fully involved, fully dedicated. Therefore, in any field we are, we can try to put our maximum effort. Samsiddhim labhate naraha. By changing the attitude and by doing it properly, we can gradually grow spiritually. Even the most worldly activities can contribute to inner growth if it is properly handled. Therefore, samsiddhi means chitta shuddhi, means purity of mind. How to achieve that? Lord says, swakarma niradaha, siddhim yadha vindandi tachunu. In the following verse will teach how karma will produce chitta shuddhi, how remaining in worldly action we can attain chitta shuddhi. Tachunu. May you listen carefully. This is conversion of karma into karma yoga. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vinayakan. That was a very enthusiastic presentation of the verses we studied in the last class. In addition, you gave us a very nice introduction to Karma Yoga. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We continue our understanding of Karma Yoga, but this time we are looking at it as Karma Siddhi. That means what is the highest accomplishment that can be achieved through karma, not directly, but through karma yogyata. Through karma yoga, you get jnana yogyata. And from jnana yogyata, we attain to Naishkarmya Siddhi. Naishkarmya Siddhi is the name of a text which has been written by Sureshwara Acharya, a direct disciple of Adi Shankara. And the word Naishkarmyam means moksha. So how karma in its perfection can lead to moksha? We are speaking to all of us who are grihasthas, who lead a very busy life. Because we have less time for so-called focused spiritual activities, the greatest spiritual opportunity is how we do whatever we do with a proper motive, with a proper intention. If that is so, then karma becomes karma yoga. So we can live a regular worldly life and yet be very spiritual, and using every action that we do. Every action involves kayika from the body, vacha through the word, or manasa. That means every thought, every word, every action can become a karma yoga. Any action that we do, which can be even a thought, even a word or a deed, remember, once it is done, it is part of the universe. And therefore, let us be very conscious of all the actions that we do. Because every action becomes now an offering to God. And that is how karma becomes a yajna. In these set of verses that Krishna has chosen, remember the context is Krishna finally wants Arjuna to get back to his Swadharma. Arjuna is trying to avoid his Swadharma, which is to fight the battle, which is a very unpleasant. And all of us at our work, when you find tremendous amount of unpleasantness, with all good intention, you take a patient for surgery, assuring the family of very good results. In spite of all your efforts, sometimes things go wrong. And when things go wrong and patients do not do well, and if the patient suffers as a consequence of your action, there is a feeling that you would like to give up this profession and look for something else. So exactly what Arjuna is feeling, and this is what Krishna is trying to say, every profession that you have has its own disadvantages. And therefore, we have to accept the choicelessness of our profession. And whatever the field of activity need not be what you do at work. It may be whatever you do at home. Whatever I do, can it be done as Ishvara Arpana Bhava? And whatever the outcome is, can it become a prasada? Now, this particular profession that Arjuna is in involves a lot of killing. And therefore, it may appear as a sin. Now, in our roles also, sometimes we may have to take a firm decision which may hurt people. But if you do not play your role because it involves hurting somebody, that very act of not doing what you're supposed to do can incur sin. And therefore, it is important that we do whatever our roles perfectly. When does karma become a yoga? Now, this is more refined understanding of karma yoga, which is actually the same thing as right action and right attitude. Swami Anubhavananda ji always tells us that we don't have to prove anything to anybody. Whenever we find ourselves putting a lot of effort in our day-to-day karma, you can observe that we are trying to prove something to somebody. Because whenever we are in Swadharma, that means what is our very nature, our actions become relatively effortless. The pinnacle of the law of karma is no sense of doership. This is called akarta. Whenever there is an ego, there is a karta. When there is no ego, and I do whatever is supposed to be done, and just do it. When there is no sense of doing, and therefore there is no karta born, there is no bhokta, and this is what is called jnana karma sannyasa, which is the highest form of karma. Now, once we have an understanding of what is this yoga karmasu kaushala, the real skill in action, then karma itself will prepare us for jnana. Karma gives us jnana yogyata. And once we have this jnana yogyata, then what happens? Jnanam becomes very easy. That is why Sureshwaracharya in the Naishkarmya Siddhi said, Shravanam is one of the greatest sadhana. For a karma yogi who has jnana yogyata, Shravanam itself now becomes an opportunity for Brahma Vidya. Why is karma yoga a very difficult sadhana? Karma yoga involves right action and right attitude. What is right action? Whenever we do any action, ask yourself this question. Am I driven by my likes and dislikes, or am I driven by what should be done and what should not be done? So time and again, you will see you prefer to do actions which you like to do. We avoid actions which we do not like to do. On the other hand, karma yoga says, right action is something that is selfless, that will benefit a large number of people. And right action also involves to avoid any form of prohibited action. That is why you will see karma yoga is not an easy sadhana. Karma yoga involves Ishvara prasada buddhi. That means whatever is my outcome of my action, I have in my mind that this is what I want. But when it does not happen, it is not easy to accept the outcome of your action. But a karma yogi now becomes so trained to be able to accept whatever is the outcome of the action as prasada. Finally, every thought, every word, every deed, it may not be in your workplace. It may be in your bedroom when you wake up, the way you fold your bed sheets, the way you do whatever you do, including turning on the tap or putting on a light switch. Every action that you do can be Ishvara Arpana and Ishvara Prasada. Your whole life now becomes a yoga. In karma yoga, sometimes you will see it is not the action in itself which generates punya or papa. It is not action in itself which becomes a yoga. It is the intention with which I do the action. If the intention is profound, if the intention is sattvic, and let the intention be what? Whatever has to be done, rather than my likes and dislikes. Let me not be governed by ahankara and mamakara. With this background, let us look into these verses, because these set of verses talk about Swadharma and how through your daily work, we can attain to Naishkarmyam, or Naishkarmyam means moksha. Our opening verse will be by Dr. Shobha. Dr. Shobha, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yata pravritti bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana tat abhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. Yata pravritti bhutanam, he from whom all living beings come into being, yena sarvam idam tatam, and by whom all this is pervaded. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha, worshipping him with one's own duties, siddhim vindati manavaha, a person easily attains perfection. In this verse, Lord asks us to be completely devoted to all our duties and thereby attain perfection. By attaining this perfection, by doing our obligatory duties, we can attain the highest goal of God realization. This verse tells us about how to do our day-to-day duties, that is, our day-to-day karma, to attain the perfection. Next slide, please. So we have to bring about an attitudinal change in three factors in our day-to-day activities. One is the karma, that is the work that we do. Bring an attitudinal change in the work that we do, an attitudinal change in karma phalam, that is the consequence of the work, and an attitudinal change in the karma phala dhata, that is the one who is producing the results. Next slide, please. So let us go with describe each of these attitudinal change. So what is the attitudinal change that we have to bring about in the action or the work that we do daily? The duties that we perform are the duties towards oneself, towards a family, towards a society, religion, environment, and others. In all these duties, we have to have the attitude of worship to God. When we consider our work, every single work that we're doing as a worship to God, our work will no longer remain a work but an offering to God. Whenever it is an offering, we strive to do our best. We try to be cheerful. We don't complain because it is an offering to God. And therefore, the quality of work improves. Therefore, treat your karma as a worship and give it as an offering to the God. How about karma phala? That is the consequence of the work that we do. What should be our attitude towards the fruit of the work? Many times we believe that whatever we do, if we do it with sincerity, devotion, and hard work, we will be rewarded. But we all know in reality that this is not always true. Accepting that the result of our work is not only because of our efforts or our beliefs or sincerity, but is also based on our karma in our various lives, helps us to accept the karma phalam that we get. Treat the karma phala as prasada, that is Ishvara prasada bhavana. There is one above us who is seeing us all through our lives, all the karmas that we are aware of and that we are not aware of, and giving us the consequence of our karma, and therefore it is a prasada. Whether the prasada is something that we like, that we expect, or we don't like and we don't expect, still it is a prasada, and so we accept it with respect. The karma phala dhata is a very important aspect in our day-to-day life. Who is this who gives us the consequence of our karma? He is none other than the all-pervading, the Lord himself. He is the cause of the universe. He existed even before the universe, and he is aware of our present and our past karma. He is like the order of the universe, like the cosmic law. And therefore, he is the giver of the consequences of our karma. So once we look upon the Lord as the order in the universe, like the cosmic laws, the universe becomes the temple, and all we do becomes worship and offerings to this all-pervading law. So we don't question why we are given this particular consequence. Why are we not given this particular consequence? And we are happy with whatever is offered to us as a consequence of the karma. Next slide. So in short, by changing our attitude towards these three factors, karma, that is the action that we perform in our day-to-day activities, the karma phala, that is the fruit of the karma, and the giver of the karma, that is the karma phala data, we are treating our day-to-day activities as a worship, that is Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, the fruit as a Ishvara Prasada Bhavana, and treating Karma Phaladata, that is the all-pervading Lord, we are gradually bringing a major transformation in our own lives. And this helps us go closer to the ultimate perfection and therefore God realization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shobha, for a very nice explanation of this verse. You will see from this verse onwards, all these verses are very relevant to our daily lives. Where we are simply talking about the attitude in which we do our actions, and through our daily actions, Manavaha, an individual, attains Siddhim, attains the highest as far as Karma Yoga can give is Jnana Yogyata by Swakarmana, by one's own actions, by fulfilling one's own responsibilities. All of us know what our responsibilities. So we just have to do, and what is the attitude that we do? This talks about Archaya. Now, whenever we go to a temple, we do an Archana. We do a form of a worship in the temple. But can we make this action an Archana? And how do we do an Archana? By being very sensitive to the Karma Phala dhata. The Karma Phala dhata is the one who is all pervasive. My sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. Krishna says, I pervade each and everything. Once you know that all pervasiveness of Shri Krishna, then every action that I do it in the presence of the Lord, because He is the one who is observing all my actions, and He is the one who is going to give the karma phala for whatever I do. And the more we become sensitive to the way we do whatever we do, we attain to Jnana Yogyata. Verse 47 by Dr. Chandrakala, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Previously, Lord Krishna has spoken about Swadharma, that everyone has to follow one's own designation in the society. Living in harmony and contributing to the growth of the setup is important. Coming to the verse 18.47, Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradarmat Swanishtitat Swabhavaniyatam Karma Kuruvannapnoti Kilbisham. The normal human tendency is to compare one to another, be it a profession, be it character, wealth, in fact, everything. Hence, natural tendency is to think others are better. So Lord Krishna says, next slide, sir. Swadharma Shreyan. The best profession is whatever the profession you have taken to. There is a proverb, distant pastures are greener. Don't compare and keep on changing jobs. Try for excellence in whatever you have taken. Enjoy it and excel in it. Same applies to Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra karmas also. Here, in this context, Arjuna wants to go to forest for tapas instead of fighting in the battlefield because it is uncomfortable or inconvenient to him. Paradharmat, others' dharma or others' profession. Lord says, your dharma is to fight in the battlefield, not to go to forest for tapas. So, he says, Vigunaha api. Vigunaha api means imperfectly performed in own profession. So, he says, in any profession, if you are not perfect right now, in due course, you can make it perfect or refine it if you do work wholeheartedly. Yeah. Swabhavaniyatam karma kurvan. Lord tells all of us that take a profession either in keeping with heredity or in keeping with your swadharma or inclination. Do it, enjoy it, be cheerful and try to improve it. Never be stagnant in a particular field. Kurvan kilbisham na apnoti. By doing that, you will not incur sin. He is telling Arjuna that fighting in battlefield is your duty, which is done for sake of dharma. That violence will not generate papam, as you are doing dharma rakshanam. Lord says, no perfect profession. So it is your attitude which makes any profession enjoyable. Therefore, change your attitude towards a profession and not the setup. So the summary of this verse is, one's own duty, though improperly performed, is better than another's duty, which is properly performed. Doing the duty determined by nature does not incur sin. So every Lord says every profession has positive or negative points. Therefore, don't look at negative points. Anyway, it is going to be there. So learn to ignore that. That we will learn in the next verse. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chandrakala, for a very nice explanation of another very important verse. But let us see the context now. The context is that Sri Krishna is addressing Arjuna, who wants to run away from his Swadharma and become a sannyasi, because he is finding his role extremely difficult, and he's thinking about the kill visham. What is the sin that I can commit if I kill my own guru, if I kill my grandfather, and so on. And he's thinking of paradharma. As I already said in the introduction, whenever we experience serious problems in our profession, and sometimes when there is a setback, as I said, on the role of a doctor, is that a patient whom you have had with all the good motive, all the good intentions, when the outcome is not good, you begin to wonder, have I done something wrong? What will the consequence will be? What will the kill visham be because I have caused a problem to somebody, and so on. And sometimes the feeling will be, can I run away from this responsibility? Shri Krishna through Arjuna is addressing, it is not only your profession, whatever role that we have. Sometimes we have difficult roles in our families, in our workplace, because we have to work with difficult people. And because of which we hope that if there is a change in the setup, things may be better. But each of these are opportunities for us for a spiritual growth, to be able to see how we can learn to enjoy to the maximum extent, do your very best as far as the action is concerned. Make it an Ishvara Arpana and a Prasada Bhava. Meenakshi for verse 48.
Yes. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sahajam karma kaunteya sadoshamapi na tyajet sarvarambhahi doshena dhumenagnirivavrataha. The literal meaning: O son of Kunti, even if one recognizes flaws in one's own sahaja karma or natural inborn duties, one should not disregard them. In fact, every activity is hidden by some form of evil, just as a fire by smoke. As we are aware in this chapter, Sri Krishna is summarizing the topic of Karma Yoga from verse 41 to 49. He is emphasizing Swadharma in the form of offering one's own occupation as a worship to the Lord. After explaining Swabhava and Swadharma of an individual in the previous verses, the Lord is now giving a sort of declaration in this verse. His advice is general and is meant for all people of all times in all situations. According to the Lord, every endeavor, every effort, and every deed will inevitably contain some flaws or defects. Even then, one should not remain without performing one's inborn natural duties. This is Sahajam Karma. If we recall, the Lord spoke about different types of karma in the 3rd chapter. He says, Niyatam Kuru Karmatvam Karmajyayo Hyakarmanaha. You have to perform your bounden duty, for action always is superior to inaction. Now, Niyatam is actions prescribed by Shastras. Sahajam is actions ordained by one's own nature. Such actions are free from sins. In this verse, the Lord says, Sahajam karma na tyajet. Do not give up your inborn duties, sadoshamapi, that is, even though it has defects. For instance, as we see in the slide, according to actions prescribed by Varnas, in the case of a Brahmana, his Swadharma demands that he has to perform sacrifices, in which case there might be animal or insects being harmed or killed. A Kshatriya, however pious he may be, must fight enemies to protect his country. A trader, Vaishya, may hide his profits, which is necessary to be in the race of his profession. A Shudra usually carries out his master's orders, even though the job given might be against the society. So, despite these flaws, one has to carry out his prescribed duties, for they are born out of one's own nature. Such actions do not carry any sins. Here, Krishna is rational in his approach towards Sahaja Karma. Swami Paramarthanandaji says, even if a job becomes stale after few years of working, it is better not to give it up, because that individual is born with that particular nature of work. He has to find ways to become innovative and creative in the same job. So any profession has its own minus points. One should realize that collective good achieved through one's actions is worth the drawbacks of the job's defects. Elaborating further, any action performed by an individual falls under anatma category and is also conditioned by gunas. So, an element of defectiveness exists in any action. Several factors influence an action. It may be the mental status of the performer, the instrument used, the state of the outside world, and so on. It is next to impossible to expect all these factors to line up in a manner that the action and its results will be perfect. Hence, we don't see perfectionists in this world. In fact, perfectionism becomes a cause for constant sorrow. Another illustration can be cited in this context. As we see in the slide, the preparation of food involves number of actions, right from growing vegetables in the fields where plowing is the first action. In this too, many living organisms get killed. The pounding or even the cooking process may result in the killing of tiny unseen organisms. Even then, we have to perform the action of cooking for our survival. To avoid incurring demerit, we chant the Lord's name with every morsel of food we eat. In the Mahabharata war, Arjuna, a Kshatriya, according to his Swadharma, had to fight and kill Bhishma and Drona. Otherwise, Duryodhana could not have been conquered, and the force of evil would have triumphed over the force of good. Next slide, sir. Sri Krishna gives a very good example in this verse itself. He says, Agni yathena dhumena avruttihi. A fire is always covered by smoke. Although fire is pure, still it is enveloped by smoke. There can be no fire without the covering evil of smoke. Yet, smoke does not make the fire impure. Fire is still considered to be the purest of all elements. So, one should not give up one's own action or duty, even if there's some amount of imperfection in it. If we take the case of human body, which is the most intricate organism on this earth, will have some minor defect in one form or the other, which may be ill health or deformity and so on. It is better to accept the fact and move on, continue to perform our best. When our actions are performed with detachment and in a spirit of surrender to the Lord, it purifies the mind and paves way for liberation. Swami Vivekananda, reiterating Krishna's advice, says, "Be afraid not, even if there's evil in your work, for there is no work which has no evil. Leave it unto the Lord and do not look for the results." Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Meenakshi, for a very nice presentation and also excellent chanting of this verse. This verse reiterates what we said in the previous verse, that every profession has its own dosha. And therefore, let that not be a highlight. Let us understand that whatever we do, every action has its own difficulties, has its own potential to create sin or kill Visham. And in spite of that, can I use this for my spiritual growth? The next verse is the culmination of this entire Karma Yoga where we will see how Karma Yoga can lead to Naishkarmyam or moksha. That will be by Mamata. Mamata, please.
Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Chanting the verse, Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Jitatma Vigata Spraha Naishkarmya Siddhim Paramam Sanyasinadhigacchati. Literal meaning is one who has self-mastery, whose intellect is detached from everything, and who is free from desires, attains the supreme goal of actionlessness through renunciation. In the next slide, in the verse, Krishna is talking about Karma Yoga as a way of life and its consequences. Karma Yoga talks about the preparation of the mind to pursue scriptural studies. It is a pathway for self-knowledge and its benefit, which is liberation. Proper practice of Karma Yoga along with Upasana Yoga enables you to qualify for pursuing Gnana Yoga, and these qualifications or prerequisites are called Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti, or the 4 Ds. In this verse, Sri Krishna mentions 3 characteristics of a seeker which can be developed by the practice of Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga that qualifies them to pursue Gnana Yoga. In the next slide, these characteristics are, next slide, sir, Asakta Buddhihi, Vigata Spraha, and Jitatma. In the next slide, Asakta Buddhi is, next slide, sir. Asakta Buddhi is seeker or karma yogi with their attitude of dedicating, next slide, sir, dedicating all actions and the results to Lord has gradually grown out of attachments to external worldly objects, activities, or persons, and has developed detachment towards worldly pleasures and pains by discovering the fact that world is neither a source of joy nor a source of sorrow. I, who am confronting the world, that I alone must be the cause of joy and sorrow. And the seeker realizes the change required is not outside, but in ourselves. This understanding is born out of discrimination that I born out of misunderstanding is the cause of sorrow, and I that leads us on the path of liberation is the cause of permanent joy. I born out of misunderstanding means when we don't have a clear understanding of our real nature, that is, we identify with limited, ever-changing body, mind, and ego, and experience various emotions like fear, anger, happiness, so on. The real I, our essential nature that leads us to our ultimate goal, liberation, is I am aware that I am not the limited body, mind, and ego. I am the all-pervading, eternal self or Atma, which enlivens the body, mind to be able to interact with the world. I am the source of lasting happiness. In the next slide, the next one is Vigata Spraha. That is, the seeker has no desire for new worldly acquisitions. Therefore, the seeker or karma yogi who is asakta buddhi and vigata spraha has transcended kama, the desire, and raga, the attachment to worldly objects, which helps them in developing intense desire to attain moksha. And the next one is jitatma, which means self-control or integration or self-integration, that is mastering of the body, mind, sense organs. In the next slide, this could be accomplished by Upasana Yoga, that is meditating on God with form, which could involve daily puja, parayanam, japa, and so on. In the next slide, the 3 characteristics of a seeker, that is Asakta Buddhi, Vigata Spraha, and Jitatma, that we just discussed, encompasses the very definition of Sadhana Chatustaya Sampatti, that is the 4 Ds or 4-fold qualifications accomplished by practice of Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga in all situations, that is Sarvatra in the words. They are discrimination about the real I, resulting in dispassion, followed by desire for moksha and the mental discipline. In the next slide, With the fourfold qualifications, the seeker is now eligible to practice Gnana Yoga. Krishna says sannyasena. Sannyasa literally means renunciation. In the context of the verse, it means a seeker practicing Gnana Yoga, that is, self or Vedantic inquiry, with ultimate goal as liberation. Householder or grihastha practicing Gnana Yoga is also called sannyasi, which means internal renunciation is more important than the external one. Such a seeker attains liberation. Naishkarmya siddhim adhigacchati. Naishkarmya means moksha or liberation. Literal meaning of Naishkarmya siddhi is state of actionlessness. In the context of the verse, it is state of knowledge that I am ever the actionless Atma. This knowledge is called actionlessness, which is paramam, that is ultimate goal. Through Gnana Yoga, the Gnani or the seeker discovers and trains the mind the fact that I am not the active or limited body or mind. I am the consciousness principle, which is ever actionlessness, all pervading and eternal. Atma or consciousness is the very life principle enlivening the body mind and is the very life principle in every living being. With this discovery, the Gnani is always calm and in a state of bliss. In the last slide, I will conclude my presentation on this verse with a few takeaway messages. Karma Yoga is the intermediary step to attain liberation. Karma Yoga with Upasana Yoga gives fourfold qualifications to practice Gnana Yoga. Fourfold qualifications are discrimination, dispassion, desire, and discipline. Gnana Yoga takes you to ultimate goal of liberation and lasting security, peace, happiness. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Mamta, for an excellent presentation of a very, very important verse, where you will see from verse 40 to 49, Sri Krishna is giving us one more summary on Karma Yoga. And here the Karma Yoga reaches its pinnacle of actionlessness or Naishkarmya. As nicely explained by you, Karma Yoga is only an intermediary step to give us Jnana Yogyata. And the Jnana Yogyata is those fourfold qualifications. Those fourfold qualifications should give us Naishkarmyam. Adhigacchati and attains to Naishkarmya Siddhi. As body-mind, we find that we are always limited, and because we are limited, this triad of avidya, kama, karma. There is a feeling that a desire arises. If I do this action, then I will become happy, and therefore the karma is born. But through Jnana Yoga, a person understands I'm not this body-mind complex. I am the Atma, which is illuminating and which is Purna by itself, and therefore there is nothing that I need to do for my own fulfillment. But as long as I'm associated with this body, there are certain actions to be done. And when you see from that perspective, the body-mind will do its own actions. I am akarta, I am a abhokta. I'm really not actively engaged in whatever is happening to my body-mind. We spoke some time ago in the beginning about the law of least effort. The law of least effort says, do less, accomplish more. The pinnacle of the law of least effort is Naishkarmyam, when I do not do anything and yet attain everything. This verse, verse 50, which will be explained to us by Indumati, is an introduction to Jnana Yoga. Shri Krishna will say, please listen to what I have to say. Indumati, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the previous shloka, we just now saw that one who has self-mastery, whose intellect is detached from everything, and he who is free from desires, attains the supreme goal of actionlessness through renunciation. Now, continuing, the 50th shloka goes like this. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tatha noti nibodhame samasenaiva kaunteya nishta gnanasya para. Word by word, meaning goes like this. Kaunteya, O Arjuna, samasena eva nibodave. Know briefly by me, dhata yatha, the process through which praptaha siddhim apnoti brahma, one who has attained purity, actionlessness, attained Brahman, ya paranishta, which is the supreme culmination of gnanam. The path of knowledge reaches Brahma. Next slide. Lord Krishna says, O Arjuna, briefly know from me how one has attained purity, attains Brahman, which is the supreme culmination of knowledge, the eternal. Here we are told how to get detached from the wrong tendencies of life and how to the extent we attain serenity and composure. Detachment from matter hallucination itself is the discovery of spiritual beauty. He says here, learn that from me in brief, O Arjuna, how to remove the last lingering film of ignorance and thereby get permanently established in that supreme God, consciousness, which is the self. In the next slide, we see Jnana Yoga consists of 3 stages, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. Consistent and systematic study of the Vedantic scripture for a length of time under the guidance of the competent teacher is the definition of Shravanam. Mananam is not confining to Shravanam alone. It is going back, trying to recollect and remove all the doubts and to get a clear understanding of Atma and Anatma, which is called Mananam. Finally, Nididhyasanam is dwelling upon the teaching so that it comes my own second nature. Next slide, we see Lord Krishna suggests allot some quality time for Vedantic meditation, become a sincere Vedantic seeker and dwell upon your real nature, the Lord says. In the next slide, we see Siddhim Praptaha. A seeker attains Siddhi, means purity of mind, Jnana Yogyata, or Sadhara Chatushtaya Sampattihi, or Vedantic qualification. Preparatory qualifications are called Siddhi, which is attained by following Karma Yoga. After which, Saha Brahma Apnoti, he attains Brahma through Jnana Yoga, gains the knowledge that Brahman is not different from me at all. Through Jnana Yoga, he comes to know that whatever I have been seeking outside, they are not available outside. Peace, Ananda, security will never come from outside. They are all my nature already. They are all my Swarupa. In the next slide, we see, thus he attains them through knowledge. Jnanasya nishtaha. Not only he attains Jnanam, by the practice of Jnana Yoga, he attains Jnana Nishta, which means spontaneity in knowledge. Vedanta must be available to help you face any crisis of life. Even for the worst tragedy, one must be able to ask, so what? If you can do that, Vedanta has worked. This is called Jnana Nishta. In the next slide, we see, to conclude, through Jnana Yoga, one attains Brahman, attains Jnana Nishta. Brahma Prapti and Jnana Nishta Prapti both are one and the same. Thus, Lord Krishna says, Samasena Nibodame. I am going to summarize this Jnana Yoga in brief. Please understand, O Arjuna. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Induji, for a nice explanation and excellent chanting of this particular verse, which is an introduction to Jnana Yoga, where Krishna says, Nibodha me, please listen to me. Samasena. Very briefly, I will tell you what is the technique to attain to Naishkarmyam. What is the technique to be able to attain to Parama Purushartha or moksha, which we will hear in the next classes. We will conclude by a chanting of these verses by Nilima. Nilima, please.
Jai Gurudev. Yatha pravrutti bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam svakarmana tamapyachya siddhatim vindati manavaha shreyan svadharmo vigunaha paradharma swanushtitat svabhavaniyatam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham Sahajam karma kaunteya sadoshamapi na tyajet sarvaramba hi doshena dhumena agniriva vavritaha asakta buddhis sarvatra jitatma vigata spruhaha naishkarma siddhadim paramam sannyasena Siddhim prapto yata brahma tatapnoti nibodhame samasenaiva kaunteya nishta jnanasya ya paraha.
Thank you, Nilima, for a clear chanting. Thank you, friends, for your active participation. Thank you, all speakers, for a wonderful class. On Monday, 27th March 2023, let us log in for a new session of Disha for the discovery of inner strength and happiness at 6:45 p.m. In this episode of Disha, we will continue our Vishwarupa Darshana Yoga along with the topic of Upasana Yoga in Tattva Bodha. With this, let us conclude today's session with our usual Shanti mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.